Every Toastmaster knows that the fear of public speaking is the most common social fear that people have. But haven't you ever wondered why that is? Why are we so afraid to just stand up and speak? Because this fear is baked into us by evolution. And that means that we're afraid to speak because for 100,000 years, our ancestors who were afraid to speak had better survival odds than other humans who weren't afraid and died out. There's something deadly about saying what you think. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters and Madam Contest Chair, that's a problem for me because I'm deeply concerned about the way that we think. I'm concerned about the way that we think about any issues that impact on human well-being. I'm concerned about how we think about climate change, politics, ethics, the science of health and medicine, and the consequences of all these things that we buy and then we throw them away. I'm concerned about how we think on these things because when we make the wrong choices, there are people down the line who suffer from it. I'm concerned about how we think, but that's not the real problem here because you can't blame somebody for not knowing what they don't know, for not understanding what they don't understand. The real problem here is that we can't bring these issues to light. We can't even talk about it. Think about all the things that you're not allowed to talk about at work or in a social situation. Religion, politics, ethics. Isn't it backwards that the things we're not supposed to talk about are the most important things? You can talk about sports. You can talk about whatever Kim Kardashian is doing. You can talk about those things as much as you want because they're completely inconsequential, but the things that matter, can't talk about those. And 18 months ago, I decided that was going to be the big ugly hill that I was going to go and die on. That was the thing that I was going to change about the world, and I had the nuttiest idea of how I was going to do that. This was my idea. I was going to take all of these most controversial topics, racism, gender identity, veganism, consumerism, abortion, just take all of these topics and invite everybody to come and talk about it. And I'd like to say that I was brave and I started right out with these difficult topics, but I was actually really afraid when I started, and I started with these lame softball topics. But luckily, I had a friend named Tristan who partnered with me, and it was him who encouraged me to get these most difficult topics, just take the most controversial ones. And so we teamed up, and that was what we did. We ran that experiment, and from that day forward, we have packed the room at every event. And we always have a big waiting list. So that gives me hope. That tells me that there's enough people who want to see their own ideas and their own beliefs come into collision. And it hasn't always been easy. We have had some really tense moments. We've even had people who have stopped coming, and when I've been able to ask them, they've told me that they were so ashamed of the way that they said something, or something that they did in a discussion, that they felt like they just couldn't come back. They couldn't even show their face again. And I think that that is the pain of self-awareness, because it's not always the good parts of ourselves that we're blind to, but when we see them, we learn about ourselves, and it makes us a better person. And if they want to go and be better people somewhere else, then that's good enough for me. It's a painful process, but it's something that we all need to go through. Just think about how perverse it is that we come to Toastmasters because we want to learn to lead. We want to learn to inspire people. And then the first thing that they tell you is that there's all these topics that you're not allowed to speak about. How are you going to lead people if you don't have the courage to face disagreements? How are you going to inspire people if all that you can speak about are banalities? I understand that Toastmasters has to be an unintimidating environment for beginners, but at a certain point, we all need to grow past it. We need to stop playing the game with this beginner's rule book. The reason that our ancestors were afraid to stand up and speak is because they lived in a harsh world, and they depended on each other for everything. And they could not risk the social division that comes when you speak truth to power. But we don't live in that world anymore. We live in the age of reason, the age of enlightenment, and we have to lose these social fears that we're using to censor ourselves. It's not enough to get over the fear of public speaking. We have to get over the fear of public thinking. Madam Chairperson.